So tell me about Teen Council and what that program is.
Well, it's a really cool program that Planned Parenthood does for teens all across the Twin Cities. And it's just a really cool group of people that get together every Monday. We talk about everything from STIs to healthy relationships to anything, essentially anything relevant to sexual reproductive health or even just teenage life.
And what do those meetings look like on Mondays? Like, how do you start? What sorts of things do you talk about?
Well, we start with dinner, which is always nice. And it's nice that you get so close with these people. So the first half hour, 45 minutes, is actually just a lot of us catching up. We talk about what we've done in the last week. And then usually, every once in a while we'll have a guest speaker, which is really interesting. They'll bring people to talk about. We had a woman come in who was, she worked as an aftercare for an abortion clinic. She was an aftercare specialist. She came in and talked to us. We've had everything from nurses at clinics from schools. We've had nurses from Planned Parenthood come in and talk to us. But otherwise, our facilitator, Caitlin, usually has some sort of presentation or some topic that we discuss and learn about, and usually has various activities planned kind of surrounding that.
What's been the interesting or most surprising thing that you've learned in your time in Teen Council?
It's hard to pick just one, in all honesty. Everything I've learned has been it's been all very interesting and really important information. Everything I've learned has some sort of merit in life, but I personally really liked learning about the birth control methods. I found that to be really interesting for whatever reason, but I've learned so much that I didn't know. From things about STIs to relationships to birth control, obviously. And it's just all, it's all very interesting, and it's all stuff that you maybe knew a little bit about, but it goes so much more in depth in Teen Council that you take away so much more than what you came with.
So where have you taken that information, and how have you talked about what you've learned about birth control methods? How do you then go and talk about that with your friends, with your parents?
Yeah. And we actually go to schools, go to middle and high schools all around the Twin Cities, and we give essentially sex ed presentations. And it's really cool because it's peer-to-peer, which I think is often more well-received than, your adult health teacher talking down to you. It's a little easier to relate to it when it's somebody in your own age bracket talking to you about it, which is interesting. And otherwise, just even in, at my own school, talking with my friends about it, I'm able to be a resource of, people can come to me about certain issues, and I can give them guidance, I can give them information I know, and I can refer them to somebody or something that will help them out.
Do you remember the first presentation that you gave to a group of middle schoolers and high schoolers? And
I do.
What was that experience like? How did you start that conversation?
Well, the first one I did was in middle school, and it was my first presentation ever, so our facilitator actually led it, and I kind of sat in on it and helped out. But it was more for me to kind of get the hang of it and see how things go. And it was interesting. I think I was surprised that middle schoolers are a lot more rowdy than the high schoolers are. But I was also surprised that even the middle schoolers take it seriously. And it's stuff that everyone wants to talk about but doesn't necessarily always feel comfortable. And so I think, the most important thing, and that our facilitator Caitlin always does and that we've learned to do, is just to make them feel normal about it. And make them feel that talking about sex and sexual health is normal and healthy and something that you should always feel comfortable doing.
What kind of ways does Caitlin or do you help people feel normal about talking about sexual health, reproductive health? How do you kind of set that tone?
Yeah. Well, one thing we do with the middle schoolers is we'll hand out slips of paper, and we ask them to write down any questions they've ever had regarding sexual health. And they're anonymous. You're not going to know who's asking them. And then we collect them, and then we go through and we answer them. And, I was surprised. Occasionally you get ones that are a little too inappropriate. You kind of have to take them out. Or not necessarily even inappropriate as much as just not serious. But for the most part, the questions are all very serious and really valid questions that in 8th grade you might not, that nobody's really going to tell you, but that you're still going to wonder about. And so it's a good way to get it started and get the kids feeling comfortable.
So one of the things that you learned about in Teen Council were different kinds of birth control methods, and that was something that was new to you. So what did you do with that information, and when has that kind of come in handy for you?
Well, it comes in handy a lot with friends. Being in high school, I've had countless girls, especially girls that are younger than me, who know I volunteer at Planned Parenthood or am a part of Teen Council have come up to me and asked just about, I've had many girls come up to me asking if I can get them on birth control. Which, is always, it's a valid question, and I'm always quick to refer them to Planned Parenthood, and I'm always like, you can go to a clinic, and if it's a money issue, if it's a parental issue, you can get put on birth control. There are so many different options. I always just recommend that people go into a clinic and meet with one of the nurses, because they're so helpful, and it's so easy.
How do people in your school know that you're a part of Teen Council and know that you're someone that they can go and talk to and trust with personal information and maybe stuff that their conversations they're not comfortable talking about?
Yeah, well, I think at first when my peers kind of found out I was doing Teen Council, was involved with Planned Parenthood, a lot of them kind of thought it was kind of a joke, kind of laughed about it. But I think the more I would come to school with information and come to school and tell them about, whatever I had learned, the more they started to take it seriously, and I think the more they realized that I'm an actual resource. And now, kids in my grade will ask me for condoms, they'll ask me about questions just regarding birth control, STIs, just sexual health related anything, which is nice. It's been really cool to see that kind of evolve into something that they saw as kind of a joke and as something that they're okay, this is pretty cool.
So how did you get past that? When folks maybe at the beginning of the year thought there was a little bit of a joke, maybe gave you a hard time, how did you get past that, and what did that look like? Did you bring handouts? Did you just take over the lunch conversation and tell everybody what you learned on Monday? What did that look like?
Yeah, well, and I'm really fortunate to go to a school where, really at my school, bullying has never been a big problem. I go to a small private school that's incredibly accepting, and I'm really lucky to go to. But yeah, I'm not a shy person, so it was never hard for me to kind of take over the conversation. And people would maybe start out not taking it seriously, but by the end they'd be like, oh, I didn't know that. So I don't know. I think I was very lucky in my situation. I think at other schools it would probably be a little more difficult to overcome the people who didn't take it as seriously, or saw it as more of a negative thing. But yeah, at my school I never really dealt with much of that.
When you've talked with other Teen Council members on Mondays who go to different schools across the metro, maybe for those who have had a harder time because of classmates, because of their school, what have they shared in terms of being able to kind of get over those barriers to having the conversation?
Yeah, well, I think all the girls, and we have one boy on Teen Council this year, but they're all such cool individuals, and they're all so confident, and they have such a great sense of self, and they know what they believe in. And just from stories that they've told me, to me it sounds like it's a lot of them just taking the high road and not giving into the negativity. They're all such great activists, and they're all involved in so many different causes, and have never let the negativity affect them in that, or affect their beliefs or what they tell people, I guess. So I think it's a lot of just being confident in yourself enough to not pay attention to the people who are giving off negative energy.
So you mentioned the word activist. So what do you think the correlation is between your Teen Council work, you're a peer educator? What's that correlation between that and activism?
Well, because I think we're all advocating for people who can't necessarily advocate for themselves, or people who don't necessarily have the strong sense of self that a lot of the kids on Teen Council do. And I think it's just standing up for, really reproductive rights in general, and the fact that we can go out and educate people on things they maybe didn't know, and maybe if not change their opinion, if nothing else, make them kind of open their mind a little more to other points of view, which I think ties in really well with the activism part of it, because in a way we are activists, just kind of fighting to educate people and to make people more aware.